Albo's latest political and economic snapshot speech. We're going to talk about it and what we're seeing on the streets in real estate in Sydney. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader. So
Data. What it shows is that our changes to make housing fairer are working. Right now, first home buyers are facing less competition from investors, and importantly, more investors are taking out loans to build new homes than ever before. With a 27% increase in loans for new builds, we're fixing a broken housing system, finally giving first home buyers a fair crack and boosting housing supply.
Good morning, Josh Rapshot.
Good morning, Mark. I'm hoping, do you feel inspired and confidence renewed from Mr. Albanese's 2 minutes of whatever you call that?
Hope.
Hope, that's all we can do at this point.
Josh Rapshot, real estate agent, Northern Beaches, Sydney, working with businesses in commercial, working with first home buyers in residential, on the coalface, high volume. We wanted to talk about what we're seeing in the marketplace. You know, data doesn't lie, but, you know, you can sort of like, yeah,
Screw it.
talk to us, Josh. Talk to us. Tell us
Yeah.
what you want to tell us, Josh.
So obviously Albo came out yesterday. Big things were, less competition for first home buyers. And the other big thing being the 27% increase in lending for new builds. So I think what he's alluding to there, unless you unpack it further, is, we're getting more supply and, more first home buyers are entering the market. Well, once you dig deeper, the true data doesn't quite give us what Mr. Albanese was telling us yesterday. I've got a couple of points just in regards to lending over the last quarter, specifically, and what we've seen buyers do. So these are in categories of owner-occupiers, investors, first home buyers. So essentially, total housing lending fell about 5.4% during the June quarter. Investor lending overall fell about 8.6%. Really big in New South Wales, we saw a drop of 15.5% of lending in the June quarter. First home lending in the June quarter has actually fallen 2.9%. And from this time last year, there has been 0.0% growth in terms of new first home buyers purchasing or securing a property in the market. So I'm not quite sure where Albanese is getting his data from. And then in terms of supply, I think we have a 240,000 target of supply. We're sitting about a target. What we're looking to achieve is about 173,000. So are more first home buyers purchasing their first home? No. Enough supply being brought to the market? No. And those are probably the biggest contributing factors to what we're seeing in the marketplace currently. So I think Lise did a video on this yesterday that's garnered a bit of attention. Just have a look at the endless comments on the socials. A massive developer went into administration yesterday. So who's building? So yeah, there was on the back of that market was one of our biggest developers. About 15,000 homes now left in limbo. You're also looking at I think they were in receivership and owing about $3.6 billion. So you can really tell
All
that
those
the developers,
all those contractors that are going to be bankrupt as a result of that. The residual effect kills me.
And what about the homeowners? The homeowners are generally when you build with these project homes, you're making progress payments along the way once every major step is done. So if they're not completing your home, you may have paid half of your bill and you're not left with a fully complete home. So it's massive for those 15,000 homeowners that aren't going to have a completed home and struggle to find a builder to come and take over that job.
With house and land, no. They pay on, or when you walk through, you pay the balance. The 10% will sit in trust accounts, and they'll get that back. With new units, no, they'll get that back. But certainly, if the people own the land and the builder is building the house, and they will be paying progress payments as the house progresses. So it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt sort of some people out there, with this change. But I just want to be real with what we're seeing in the marketplace. And I want to be real about, like I'm not, being a business person now and running a business and what I've learned is the rose color glasses or talking bullshit to yourself that on your numbers is often where we can go wrong. And I even think as a country, and certainly as a business, that it's a time people we're talking to out there are genuine. And I'm not here to spook people, but we've got to get ready for probably a tougher environment, and which means me personally, and our teams, we've got to work harder and we've got to work smarter, and we've got to find efficiencies more than ever, because going in blind and everything's going to be okay, be it a country or an economy, or be it a business, it's going to catch up when the music stops. So we are seeing in the marketplace, and where there's not a lot of commercial agents on the ground in Metro Sydney. You'd be surprised how little commercial agents are out there, but we are seeing business activity change a lot. People are not making big investments. People are actually probably out to save a buck more than ever. So it's this consolidation period and it's this retraction period where that we're seeing in business, and certainly first home buyers. The whole idea of putting everyone through pain in the economy to help first home buyers, well, we haven't actually even seen that either. Not in the last 3 months and not in the last 3 years, where we've gone, wow, that's a first home buyer to buy something for $750,000 on the northern beaches needs to be earning about $140,000. Irrelevant to a small deposit, they need to be earning a lot of money. So it's just, I don't know, Josh.
It is, and like I actually found this. I'm just going to bring up this stat as well. I thought was really, really interesting. It was basically saying that the average first home buyer, in terms of their debt, back in 2021, it was an average of about 450,000. Today, that's jumped up to about 750,000. So nearly in 5 years, the average first home buyer has almost leveraged double the debt.
Wow.
Which is massive. So like, are these, are we really, especially with that 5% deposit scheme, are they really got the first home buyers, are they really looking out for them? Because putting them, with that 5-year time frame is, over the longer scheme of things is quite short, and to be almost doubling your what you owe, it's I thought that was really, really big. And then another thing on top of, you look like you wanted to say something there.
Yeah, I will say something about negative equity, but what are you going to say?
I think another thing as well is on top of that big developer folding, we also had Stocklands and Mirvac come out last week and state that, hey, we're going to be building less homes. So, I really think with a struggling market, that does not really give any incentive for these players to bring more supply to the market. Because as we know, build costs, red tape, it ain't easy to put together a project these days with all the certificates they've got to go through. And good question,
Yeah,
Reese. A lot of buyers.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But if you look at like I think if you're looking at running like a country, an economy, or if you're running a business, or if you're running your family budget as a first home buyer, um, to be at the moment, for instance, DY units, we saw there's more units sold in DY than there is in Sydney CBD. It's a good metric, DY. The median price in DY today has gone back to where it was in 2001. I'm
21.
really happy. 2021. 5 years it did nothing. So 5 years people paid a mortgage for nothing. Why am I telling you that? I think if you're a first home buyer and you see those sort of numbers and you haven't bought, you're like, why should I buy? I'm not going to make any money. Like 5 years in the first home buyer's life is like, I see it like I look back at the other cycles, but I think to myself, like, seriously, as an economy, as economy and as a country, is it, I feel like that there's severe taxes and penalties to get us into a better place. And I think it's like raising children. If you bring your kid up with pain their whole life, it's generally not the best way to raise an economy or raise a child. Do you know what I mean? Like, you sort of got to have your incentives, well done. And then you got to have your look, but you really have to work hard, or you really have to do this. And I just don't feel like that's being reflected. So as a whole, holistically, so, I don't know, it's an interesting landscape.
And Mark, you talk about, I think one of the big things that these guys, like, these guys maybe don't understand is like serviceability. Forget about the 5% deposit. You go and buy, your median unit in DY is around that sort of 1.1 mark. You go and put a 5% deposit down, 6%. You're paying roughly $6,000 a month. I mean, $6,000 a month. That's $1,500 a week.
After
I mean, no
tax.
wonder. After tax. So,
Yeah.
call it 2.5. That's ridiculous amount of money. Then you're forgetting about petrol in the tank. There's $100. Food, you're spending anywhere between, I don't know anyone who's not spending under $400 or $500 a week. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. How are these first home buyers going to afford this?
Pastor Novak has some advice. Shouldn't say that. What's Tate Brownlee saying?
Well, let's bring that back up.
Banks are also considering as high. Can you read that?
As high as 10% on risk ratio. So what people borrow when it's reducing their borrow capacity. So essentially, they have a buffer when they're obviously generating or calculating your serviceability. And
So it's harder. It's harder again. Thanks,
Thanks, it takes the purchasing power, out from buyers. And obviously, I ran this process with a friend. I would have thought he's, rent's cheap, no expenses, no bills. Told him, hey, I think this is a really good buy, $750,000. He couldn't get the loan. Been in the job, 3-4 years.
Can Pastor Novak sell some hope?
Please do.
Because I'm regularly getting asked to people like, property, really? Is it really going to go up? Is it really going to double in 10 years? But very quickly, I want to entertain it going down. Building costs too expensive. Strangled by compliance, strangled by taxes. Materials are not going to go down. Labor ain't going to go down. So I think properties in this there's a perfect floor or incubator for it not to go down much further in terms of a correction. It always has, over the last 100 years, on average, doubled every 10 years. And at the moment for DY, we're sitting at It hasn't done anything for 5. I believe and I don't believe I'm selling hope, but I think based on on history, principles, economics, and that sort of stuff, I believe we will see a fantastic marketplace coming. And what does a fantastic marketplace look like? I've worked in 3 to 4 cycles now. A fantastic marketplace looks like about 10 or 15% capital growth a year. There has been times where it's done 40 or 50% in the 80s, but I think we're too regulated for that. I still hold hope. And I also think, don't bullshit yourself. Having a second job and having a third job, like when I grew up in my watching my parents and in my 20s and in my work, I think it is the time where we've just got to work real hard. And I know people don't like to hear that. They've got a degree. Why should I get a second or third job? I've got a degree in accounting. Like, whether that's doing the same job where you are 100 hours a week, these ain't 38-hour-a-week times. These are, we have to work hard and push through these times, in my opinion. And I think that's how you buy property. And I do think property will double over the next 5 to 10 years. Actually, I'm 100% in my guessing.
It will be interesting, especially if they end up getting rid of the compulsory super. That might bring some extra heat back into the market, and maybe we'll see some loosening of monetary policy after Christmas time, around that March next year, depending on how inflation goes. But like you said, Mark, I think we did this 25 and 50 years. Every time in Northern Beaches, the prices outperform the previous high. So let's see what we're in for here.
Have a great day. Thank you, Mr. Economist Josh Wapshot.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah. Bye.